Okay, I'm going to do a quick review on some of this. This is Stephanie Harlow. You can see The Murders of Devin and Damon, the case against their mother, Darlie Routier, Part 1 on Crime Weekly. They're going to do a series on this. Uh, Stephanie has a background in journalism. I remember her when she first started her channel. I haven't seen one of hers that I disagreed with ever in any case. I spoke to her briefly. She spoke to a lot of people. But I spoke to her briefly about this case years ago, and she wasn't interested in it because there was a lot more drama years ago than there is now. But I wanted to put this little clip out there real quick for Rich Prater.
Then Brian, the paramedic, he goes to help Darlie, right? She's got wounds too.
Yeah, let's hear about these wounds.
Yeah, he noted that while she was clearly upset, she was not crying or screaming. She asked who could have done this to her babies, but showed no signs of being in shock. Brian suggested they move out to the front porch. He thought it might be helpful to get her away from the scene. And obviously she can't listen to anybody when they tell her to go help her kid, but she goes right out to the front porch, no problem. She's got no problem moving at that point. And once outside, he began dressing the wounds. A 3.5-inch cut on her neck and a 1-inch wound on her forearm.
Wait. You said you must have said that wrong. You said cut.
3.5-inch cut.
Are you sure? Neck. Wait, it was a cut? It wasn't a stab wound?
No, it was a cut.
A cut.
Like that.
So 4 deliberate stabs to each of the children, no chance of survival. Luckily, she's the one who engages with this guy, and she gets a nick on the neck.
Well,
right, they're looking at the difference in the mode of attack, which is the same thing Alan Brantley looked at, the MOA. The mode of attack on the children was much different than it was on Darlie. They were surely going straight down on the boys. Another thing that Stephanie says during this is very interesting. She feels like Damon saw the attack on Devin and tried to get away. Thus, he was hit in the back. That's pretty interesting. I always felt like he was trying to crawl away from his mother. But what I want Rich to pay attention to is that she did her research. Brian Koschak suggested to Darlie that they go out to the front porch just to get her away from the scene to help her calm down a little bit. And she had no problem walking out there. Then they dressed her wounds up. Nowhere in that scenario does Brian Koschak talk about her passing out. So, Rich, I want you to think again when you say, Darlie told me she passed out on that front porch. Well, Rich, Darlie's a fucking liar. And all you have to do is read the testimony. She lied to you. Makes me wonder what else she lied to you about, Rich. But anyways, I got a message from Rich. He is very interested in doing a one-on-one online discussion, not so much a debate with me, just him. And everybody knows me, I won't hold back. I like Rich, but I will hold him accountable for the things that he says. And I encourage him to do the same thing to me. Hold me accountable. I won't take it personal. I like Rich as a person. We just disagree on this case. He's never really done anything to make me even close to mad, ever. He gets mixed up with some of these people that want to act the way they do, and it reflects on him sometimes. But Rich is the YouTube face of Darlie's innocence. So I'd like to do that. Now, I know from back in the day that Stephanie felt like she was guilty. And Derek, well,
just slashed her, probably like a slash across the neck.
So no puncture. So he decided to change up his attack mode. That seems off to me, but okay.
Yeah, with the adult, who do you think you'd want?
Darlie, I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt here, Darlie. I'm trying. No stab wounds is what you're telling me.
I mean, at this point, it looks like
There's actually two stab wounds. There was one up on the shoulder that Sully was telling everybody was in the abdomen. It's up on her shoulder. There's a very faint stab wound. And the stab wound to her arm, which they call it a deep stab wound, and they always say, well, it went all the way to the bone. Well, check the top of your wrist and see how far down it is to the bone.
Whoever came in that house had an issue with the kids, right? Those kids made some serious enemies because they're the ones that got the brunt of it.
If she was
That's right.
sleeping and I'm the attacker, I'm stabbing her first. She's going to be the biggest problem.
Yeah, because you're the adult.
I'm stabbing her first.
Yep, so while all of that was going on, Officers Walling and Waddell went upstairs to clear the area, and they were surprised to find nearly 8-month-old Drake sleeping in his crib. Neither Darlie nor Darren had mentioned having a third child in the house. So these cops go upstairs and they're like, what? There's a baby up here. Now, because there didn't appear to be an intruder upstairs, they left him there sleeping. When they got back downstairs, a neighbor named Karen, who was also a nurse, had arrived and offered to help. Waddell told her that since paramedics were already on the scene, they didn't need assistance. Where the hell were you, Karen? 20 minutes ago?
Another Karen in this case.
Yeah.
Great.
So she stayed outside at that point, and eventually officers allowed her to go upstairs and retrieve the Routier's Pomeranian, who had been barking from an upstairs room. And apparently the baby's sleeping through all of this, which is absolutely crazy. Like the chaos downstairs.
So much chaos downstairs. Let's consider the reason why Darlie Routier was downstairs in the first place. She said Drake was an uneasy sleeper. He would roll around and rock in his crib and grunt and root. It was such a bad problem that she needed to remove herself from the bedroom and sleep on a different part of the house. Yet Drake was sleeping peacefully through all this chaos.
The screaming during the 911 call, the Pomeranian Domino barking his little head off.
Did correct her about his name. I believe that she read the book Hush, Little Babies, because Don Davis calls that dog Domino in there.
Baby still is asleep. So Waddell remained at the front door to preserve the crime scene. Darlie, meanwhile, was still on the front porch being treated by Bryan and Larry.
Treated by Bryan and Larry Byford. If you read Byford's testimony, it goes against what Darlie told Rich. Now, Rich boldly complained. Darlie told me she passed out on that porch. That's why there's a puddle of blood out there. So that means, Byford, Waddell, Walling, and Koschak are liars. And Darlie's telling the truth.
Another paramedic who had responded, and while she was being treated, Officer Walling asked her a few questions. He later testified, quote, she had told me that she was asleep on the couch and that she had been awakened and felt somebody standing over her. Then she realized that she had been stabbed and she began struggling with the person at the couch and that they had run out through the kitchen door into the garage.
She told him that stuff while she was on the stretcher on the porch. Rich.
End quote. And that's really not what she told the first officer. She said she had chased him into, through the kitchen and that he had dropped the knife in that utility room and then he went into the garage. But now she's chasing him into the garage. And Darlie had described the intruder as a white male wearing a dark colored ball cap, a black t-shirt, and blue jeans. So now she has a description of him. Now she can say, oh, he's a white dude, and she can even give the color of his shirt and his jeans. So, it's really good that her memory is clearing up.
And just to go back to what her own words, and I have a major problem with it, we talked about the injuries to Damon and Devin. Deliberate, intentional, they were lethal in nature. The intent was to kill them. And what she's telling us is that she woke up to a guy standing over her, and then she realized she had already been stabbed.
She opens her eyes and she's like, there's somebody standing over me. Who's going to stab you and then stand there and wait for you to wake up?
This is what you have to believe if you believe Darlie, and that's fine if you do. That he was standing over her, and the guy who was direct hits on the two kids, smaller mass, smaller target, and yet was pretty accurate. And yet when he stabbed Darlie, he missed her completely while she was sleeping and just nicked her neck and whatever else, other spot. Like she's got a cut, but totally missed her and decided at that point he was going to stab the two kids because you have to assume he stabbed the kids first before he went over her. And he stabs the two kids the way he does. But then with her, it would be harder for him to nick her like that on the neck than it would be to stab her. So the fact that he did that, it just doesn't align with the the MO of the killer at that point. It doesn't align.
It doesn't align with logic because you're going to sleep through your 2 kids being stabbed.
No,
Now check this out.
I'm
not going to pause this on a funny.
Also, by the way,
James Cron, when they said this doesn't align with logic, James Cron's whole ordeal of approaching this case is with a common sense approach. And that's what he's talking about. So go see Crime Weekly, The Murders of Devin and Damon, The Case Against Their Mother, Darlie Routier, Part 1. They're going to do a different part each week. They're figuring out 4 parts at least. Stephanie is a renowned true crimer journalist. She has over 1 million subs. She's been featured on several different shows. Derek has a background in law enforcement investigations. And they're reaching this with a common sense approach. They're not friends with the family. They're not friends with any non-supporter. They're coming at this with a non-biased approach. Common sense. I encourage people to go watch this.